Hi, this is Dennis Dempsey. You are listening to the Faith in Humanity podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Faith in Humanity podcast. A very special episode of the Faith in Humanity podcast because this is going to be our last episode of this season. We're going to be taking off the month of December to spend time with family and friends for the holidays. But I'll still be very active on social media, so be sure to follow us on Twitter at TFIH_podcast. And you can find us on Facebook under the Faith in Humanity podcast. If you're going to miss me a lot over that month, and I know you all will, and you can't go a month without hearing my voice, I would suggest you follow my other podcast. I'm going to be very active on that podcast. I'm going to continue doing recordings 3 times a week for that podcast. It's called Political Thumbs Up or Down. It's where me and my good friend Sergio. Now, you may remember Sergio from episode 4. He's Ecuadorian. He was a Catholic in Ecuador that we discussed about Catholicism in Latin America. So his voice may sound familiar to you guys, but this podcast is pretty much where 2 friends just discuss news, political news, current events, issues that are facing us daily, and we just break it down and we kind of rant and we rave, and it's a whole lot of fun. And it's a basic system where we rate the response, usually how the Trump administration is responding to a certain situation. We either gives them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or we've been tackling taxes recently, so we've been looking at different aspects of the tax code and giving that a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Be sure to follow that podcast to not miss anything. It's a lot of fun. It's more loose, it's more free form than this podcast, and we definitely get really fired up. I try to keep a little unbiased approach on this podcast where I try to be open-minded for all religions, but on the other podcasts, I really express my opinions about politics, not so much religion, but religion is a factor in that. At least here in America, religion and politics go hand in hand in many cases. So this is going to be part 2 of this 2-part season finale. Part 1 I released a couple of weeks ago, so definitely go back and listen to that. But this is a continuation of my discussion with Guido. He's an atheist living in Argentina. We had a fantastic discussion. He's now a really good friend of mine. We get down to the nitty-gritty, and you really understand his thought and his ideology and his philosophy behind why he believes what he believes, and it's really fantastic. And the second half of this episode has a lot to do with his political views, which he says that he's a Marxist. So we get into that a little bit because I think that that's important. I think that the way that you view religion and the religion that you subscribe to definitely affects how you think people should be organized. I think that those 2 things really go hand in hand. It's the way that you view humanity and the outcome of humanity and how humanity should be structured in order for us to survive and thrive in a moral and ethical environment. This podcast does contain some cursing. I should warn you now. So you have little kids around, you may want to wait until later to listen to this podcast. All right, and without further ado, we're going to jump into the rest of the interview. And be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any episode. We'll be back in your newsfeed in 2018, and we have a lot of exciting episodes to present for you guys. We're going to be taking the podcast in a slightly different direction. We're still going to be talking to people about their personal stories, but we're going to also be tackling some topics that I just find interesting as the host and creator of the podcast. I get to do what I want, so that's the great part about it. I can talk to whoever I want. I'm not beholden to any donors or anything like that. I don't have to follow anybody else's opinions. I can do what I want, and that's a beautiful thing. So I hope to see you guys all in 2018 and have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful New Year's. I mean, you kind of touched on this, and I'm guessing within people that have religion or follow religion, they have to be answerable to God, but you're saying that you're answerable just to mankind. You do something shitty to someone else, you are hurting mankind as a whole. Even if it's kind of the idea that, like, if I kill just one person, I'm not really killing one person. I'm hurting mankind as a whole. It's not just the one.
I think I think, well, of course, there's no, for me, there's no moral code regarding a God or anything. So I always discuss this with my fellow historians, colleagues, and we always say that we have like a really high moral standard. Like we are always fighting for everything, for feminism, for socialism, for every ism that should promote life quality, and yeah, of course, when we do something wrong, we are like fuck. For example, I don't know, I hate sexism, and maybe I say something about a woman, and I like fuck. But it's something like an inside moral code, some like inner, you know. So yeah, of course, it's about humanity. It's about that. I think about people.
And people, like I heard one thing. Someone said when I was talking to the person from Ecuador, they were saying that like growing up as a Catholic, they could do something wrong and then just go to confession later and have it be like wiped away. But you're like, we don't get stuff wiped away. We need to know this is the real thing. We need to. Yeah, that's why you're saying we're holding ourselves actually to a higher standard, or we expect more out of ourselves because we're not thinking about having a safety net to fall back on.
No. I think about I don't think about actually confession or anything. Even my mother always asks me, so what do you do when you do something wrong? Like, do you pray? So no, I don't pray. So what do you do? And I say I don't know. I ask for forgiveness to the person I hurt. You know, I ask for myself to improve as an individual. I have to improve as an individual, but thinking in society, thinking in community. So
yeah,
you follow the idea.
Yeah. Of course. People, because of their faith, they receive like a sense of peace and comfort, reprieve maybe from loneliness. Knowing in their mind, because you know they're just they're very staunch and firm in their beliefs. So they, in their opinion, they know that there's God that they're talking to and everything. So it is a reprieve from loneliness, knowing that they may not be facing a certain time of tribulation alone, and then they also get a hope, and they're receiving things from God and from their faith. Like, where do you draw your like peace, comfort, hope, and so on from? Because like I find that even as a humanist, people can be a little fickle and kind of difficult to rely on. So where would you draw those?
I don't want to sound like a cliche, but my friends and family.
Okay.
I'm really, really open-minded with my close people. I sort of take a confession with my parents and my family. Yeah. So I don't have a priest, but I do talk about my issues with people around me, and looking for an advice and looking for build myself better, not just only to ask for absolution. I don't agree with that. So when I ask for forgiveness with my parents or my family or my friends, it's always thinking about improving myself. It's always not just for I go to a priest and shit, and,
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, relying on friends and family is incredibly, having a social system is incredibly important. And I interviewed someone about cults and everything, and like cults can be within the same vein as religion. And it seems that when people don't have that social structure, that they can be prone to being involved or being drawn into cults, or even some religious aspects because they don't have that. I mean, that could be a potential reason why people get drawn, and that could be a benefit of religion is that it gives them that community. You go to that church, you get that community, you get things off your chest. You're able to talk to people.
Brainwashed.
Brainwashed is and that's
you
one
can
way.
delete
That's
that.
one
You
way
can
of
delete
putting
that.
it.
I think that sort of cults, which movies made United States really popular of, are a problem because they seek really weak people. So that's a problem. So actually, having in your
Do you find yourself ever doubting your beliefs in atheism? Do you ever think like maybe there is a God out there? And do you at any level as atheism believe that there is some sort of faith involved? Because like obviously I feel almost every belief is like we are unable to go past death, record stuff, and then come back. And like I heard a Buddhist say death is just a moment in life and then things happen after that. It just happens to be another moment in life. So like I mean that's the Buddhist mindset. But so do you find that there is some sort of faith that you need to have? And I understand that it's definitely structured in science that has been tested and everything, and there's definitely a lot of evidence that we can measure and record. So like there has to be some level of
okay, I will quote this X-Files where like I want to believe, I think all my life I wanted to believe, all my life, but I've never been able. I really can't. And actually, I will quote this. There was found in an Auschwitz camp, concentration camp on Auschwitz. There was found a writing sentence which said, if God exists, I will go again. If God exists, he will have to ask me for forgiveness.
Wow.
Yeah. I think if there's a God,
that was in the concentration camp. That was like written by a Jewish person in the concentration.
In Auschwitz.
Wow.
Yeah, in Poland. Yeah.
Wow.
So I will try to be a little bit more serious now. If there's a God, if there is one God or multiple gods, they are evil. They wrote hopes. They saw hopes. Yeah. If there is a God right now, or many gods, they are evil. They are sadistic and they are crazy, really, because the world we live in is fucked up. Mm-hmm. So when people say, "Oh, but God gave us free will," well, that's fucked up. Then that's a sick game. That's a sick game. Yeah. So if there's a God, if there should be a God, I think that's a God, and I will have a problem when I die because we will have to fight. We will have to argue. I will argue with him, or her.
So you're saying that if they were able to prove that there's a God, you would not even worship that God, even if you would.
No, really, no.
You would have no respect, nothing, just like,
nothing, Dennis. No, nothing, because you study history and you realize everything is shitty. Everything is shitty. Of course, I think it's because of human relationships. But if there is a God, well, he allowed this madness. People dying every day, not because they are old, because they kill each other. Women raped every day. Yeah. Well, I don't have to name everything, but you know. So yeah, as an empress, as a humanist, as a Marxist, I follow social what I see, what I touch, and if there's a God and if it's proven, well, I don't like him.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I try not to be like a closed-minded atheist. For example, many people ask me, "Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in that sort of stuff?" And I say, I don't think there is like my godmother spirit walking around the house. But maybe there is some, energy floating, and the energy is something understandable. It's chemistry,
No, I gotcha. I understand. Yeah, it's this. Yeah, but for me, maybe I just choose not to accept certain things, or maybe. I don't know, maybe I haven't gone to a point, because I want to truly believe that all this, but you're right, the world is terrible, but there's a lot of beauty also, and just like consciousness of mankind and everything. And I'm not saying that you weren't saying that, I understand that. It's just the beauty and the consciousness of mankind and everything. I would like to think that with death, it doesn't just stop. Like, I like to hold on to that hope, and maybe it's a childish hope. I don't know, but I'm holding on to it for right now.
No, not childish. Not childish. No, not at all. So where would you catalog yourself? Not atheist.
No, I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic.
Agnostic.
I'm agnostic, and like, I mean, in all honesty, I feel like everybody would have to say that they're agnostic, almost, because it's like, who can truly say that they know? That's just where I stand. Now, obviously, you're saying you're an atheist. My mother would say that she's Christian. You know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, she's like more holy than the Pope, and so she would be like, I know for sure. And I guess that's the definitive. I guess that's what the difference is. It's just, I know for sure, and then I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not. And I don't know. I don't think I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I say that I know, and I don't think I ever want to get to a point where I say I know. I think I always want to be thinking and learning and never settle on something as like, I mean, hard truth, gravity. If I drop this pen, yes, it's gonna fall. I'm not gonna question that. But you know what I mean? Like, maybe.
Yeah, I think the agnostic are the open-minded atheists. You know?
Yeah. That's fair. That's how I kind of view myself, because I feel like deep down I kind of have this feeling that there's, you know, this is probably it, and there's a lot of beauty, and it's great, and like you can have these connections with people, and it's wonderful. But you know, deep down, like, I think at the end of the day, gun to my head, if I had to choose, like, do you think that there's a spiritual world, a God, a deity, or do you think there's not? I'd be like, I mean, everything kind of points at that there's nothing right now. Which kind of leads me to my next question, because you kind of talked about the New Age thing and everything. And what do you say about people that have these profound experiences on hallucinogens? Is it just that the chemicals firing in the brain is just very powerful, and they can have these spiritual experiences and these spiritual awakenings, and it just happens to be the way the mind works and the way, like, the chemicals are firing and the way the neurons are firing and whatnot? Is that kind of where you stand on it?
Yeah. I think you already answered the question. Yeah, I believe everything. Oh yeah, you just did. I'm sorry, you led me to the answer. I think the drug experience are awesome. I haven't tried many, actually. I only tried marijuana. But I know many people who try acid or pills and that stuff, and they told me this was fantastic. My head opened and everything. But I don't think how do you say? I don't think this has a religious experience. But for example, there was this pre-Hispanic communities in Mexico, you know, the Aztecs, and they try some really strong flowers, and they smoke everything, and they thought actually they were seeing the gods, and that's awesome for them. But that's just how your brain processes the drugs. That's it. And
so do you think they have a purpose in the world, like for medical reasons? I mean, these experiences, this consciousness and these experiences that people have, do you think that there is a purpose to it at all? Or do you think it's just, hey, you go on a fun ride and this just happens to be the way the chemistry works in your brain? And do I just keep answering your question? The questions?
No. Actually, you gave me two answers to choose. So, and I will give you another. I will give you some new one. I think that the brain is not in its high potential. So clearly, having this kind of drugs help you to understand reality in a different aspect, or maybe unlocking some things in your brain that leads you to some new experiences. That's totally great. But if you compare the same drug with with a religious person and a non-religious person, both will have amazing experiences, but they won't see the same. Why? Well, because their experiences are influenced by their own mental beliefs. So if a pre-Hispanic dude believe in multiple gods and they smoke the drug, of course they will see multiple gods because they process that way. But if I'm an atheist and I took this drug, I will think of any other thing.
Yeah.
Because my mind processes the thing in a different perspective. That's another answer, you see?
There you go. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I just answer things.
You lead the person to the answer.
I know it's probably not good. I just like to say, like, I like to get my thoughts. I feel like when I ask a question and then I give multiple examples, I feel like I'm explaining I'm attempting to trying to clarify the question to get a more accurate answer. So by kind of giving some answers, it hopefully helps someone think.
But as I see you, and actually as I read you before, when you ask me questions or we discuss things, I thought, this guy is not just waiting for my answers. He's trying to understand himself the same questions. You know, I think when you ask me stuff, that's why I think you answer me, because you're already trying to understand the question you said. You know what I mean? Like you're learning here with me. Like we are in the same process. Mm-hmm. So you're not just like this interviewer who says questions and he stays like neutral. I think you're trying to build something. That's amazing.
Yeah, see, thank you, because that's what I want to do. Lots of times when I go in to talk to someone, I don't want to have a lot of information about their life or about so much about, because I want to just submerge myself in their thinking. I want to understand exactly why they're thinking this way. I want to put myself in their, so even if I completely disagree with what they're saying, I want to understand the logic of how they got to where they got, instead of just being like, it's crazy. You're right. That's why I answer things.
Your intention is clear. Your intention is really clear. It's amazing.
My what is really clear?
Your intention. What you just said, it's clear. It's clear.
Yeah, and I hope that it's not irritating, because at the same time I want people to answer. I want to get realistic answers, but at the same time I do really want to project and try to figure out people and try to understand people. I mean, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to understand. I want to learn about the way people think. And I guess sometimes I do have like an idea of what they may say, and that's kind of why I project those things. And it's like I don't know. Although atheism is a little bit easier, because I feel like my mind, just being more of a critical, skeptical mind myself, I feel like I have more of like a rational, reasonable, kind of like logical mindset when I'm thinking about things. So like talking with you, it's very easy for me to project. Other people, some other religions, I have a harder time. I'm like, I don't know exactly. This is uncharted territory for me.
I think Dennis, and you can skip this part of the podcast, but maybe you have to. But I think atheism it leads to a more critical way of reality. Atheism or agnosticism, or I think one of our purposes as humanity is to criticize everything. To have doubts of everything.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one of the last question you sent to me, like, what will be the message you will give as an atheist? I would say doubt of everything, because that's the only way you can approach reality. I think if you believe, like if you intensively believe in a God, I don't care which God, you are just taking the easy path. You're just giving everything for granted, like. Yeah, whatever I do, I'll go to heaven, or whatever I do, there's something more beyond, and that's, I think it's even coward, in my opinion, of course. In my opinion, coward. Yeah. So
it's this idea of like not being able to not being in the real world and just dealing with the real world and dealing with some of the struggles and pains. It's like, no, I'm going to project. I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to put it on this. I'm going to put it away. I'm going to say, hey, I'm not going to deal with this pain and stuff. It's all going to be fixed when I get to heaven. It's kind of like you're saying, it's a way for people to not be necessarily critical on themselves, not be necessarily critical on a situation that causes them discomfort or pain potentially, and it's like a way of just saying, wiping my hands clean, and I don't want to deal with this. Instead of addressing the issue, and even potentially helping people by addressing the issue, if we're talking about, people that have gone through abuse or, some serious hardships and are able then to help and coach other people through those similar situations.
That's it. Yeah, that's basically it. There was I actually discovered this. The myth of Sisyphus.
Yeah, the guy that has to bring the rock all the way up to the top of the mountain, then it rolls back down every time. Albert Camus, which is this French existentialist writer, said that's life. That's life. Like we push a meaningless rock, and then it falls again, and that's life. That's routine. Like you wake up, you go to work, you come back, you watch Netflix, you eat, and that's repeat every single day. And that's a problem. And actually, this existential writer thought, why don't we commit suicide? Like this is meaningless. Yeah.
But he was kind of hopeful and said, how I explain in English? He actually said, we have to acknowledge life is meaningless. We have to acknowledge that and do something about it. So I believe life is meaningless. I believe there's no purpose. There's no higher purpose. I believe we make the purposes. I believe we have to make something. We have to make a change. Because sometimes people say, oh, you're agnostic, you're atheist, you're existentialist, so you just sit in the back of the sofa and say everything is fucked up, so I don't do anything. No, actually it's the opposite. As I know there is nothing else higher, I have to make things here. Many times. Yeah, you go, tell me.
You're like, no, I feel like I talked enough. I totally agree with you, because I feel like starting this project, and that's kind of what you mentioned when you were messaging me, is like the start of this project is kind of that. It's kind of this idea that's like, I get this feeling that the world is meaningless, and I go through my routine of, I work as well, and then I come home and I watch Netflix and I make food, I play with my cat.
Everybody.
Yeah. And then that's why I created like this, because I'm like, no, I need to try to make a difference, and I want to try to talk to people. And I think maybe because from America, because like America, and now I'm not too sure about Argentina, I'm not too sure about anywhere else in the world, but at least here in America, religion and what you believe it's very contentious. It's a serious thing. I mean, this was happening before the rise of Trump, and Trump just kind of like sped it up a little bit, but it definitely was going on. And even with Trump in the White House, I've noticed, and I've heard stories from friends and everything about how there has been an increase in these complete grotesque stereotypes and just demonization. And I think we may have talked about this, how when I was on Twitter reading stuff, people on the left are non-humans and people on the right are just painted as these devils and everything. And it's this idea that we're getting away from, wait a minute, these are people. They have hopes, they have cares, they have fears. Fear leads to violence. There's a root here. There's a problem here. And it's like, we need to talk about something. We need to talk to these people. We need to I need to be broadcasting this talking to these people to try to push down or break apart these miscommunications, to try to reduce the fear and therefore reduce the violence. I believe that through education, you learn a lot through education and expanding your worldview. It only benefits you and benefits humanity as a whole when you do it. So yeah.
But of course, I agree with this dehumanization of Trump and everybody. And I think education is, I don't know how it's in America, but education here it's shitty. It reproduces the same shit thing. Like, we have to worship the flag, we have to worship the president, and everything's so fucked up. Everything is so fucked up. And no, really, I'm doing some catharsis right now. So yeah, when you invited me to this podcast, I said, yeah, finally somebody wants to understand what's going on outside of their own environment, and that's fantastic. And that's fantastic. To be honest, I've been having really busy weeks, so I haven't really checked the episodes of your podcast. I only listen like brief moments of some of them, like the one of the Wicca or one of the Catholic person. So when I'm more with no things here, I will certainly listen to them because I really love podcasts.
Yeah, good. I love podcasting. That's another reason why I started this thing. Now, last thing was, I'm just curious, and this probably won't even make it in. This probably won't even come into the podcast. I'm just curious. You said that you're a Marxist. Can you just define that for me? Because I hear terms like that, and I want to understand. Because I think this is important too. Because I'm sure that following. Now, I don't know how closely you guys follow like American politics and American election. Now, we don't follow Argentinian elections or anything. I don't know anything that's going on because we established this in the beginning. We're America. We're everywhere. I mean, this is like, I'm sure that like the rest of the world watches us, because like what happens with us affects a lot of the world. Yeah. So like, like obviously like when Bernie Sanders was running, and I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. I was working in New York City at the time, and I went to his initial rally, his first rally there, and then I went to his volunteer thing. I was really big time Bernie supporter, but he was crazy demonized for being a socialist. I mean, like he was the most evil person, And so, like you saying that you're a Marxist, and that carries some weight of connotations here in America. Obviously, we are all about capitalism here. So, like, you want to just define that? I'm curious for my own understanding. What that means to you. Yeah.
As being a Marxist, you understand the economical system of capitalism is wrong, and it can't lead to anything good, because actually we think of Obama as like a really progressive and say, oh, that's a good capitalism, and it's not. So being a Marxist means you have to you need to stop being selfish and start to think as we have to change the economical system, but we don't believe we have to change it as with voting. So we heard of Bernie Sanders, of course, but he's no Marxist. He's just some sort of Democrat with kind of left-wing ideologies. But he if he would go into power, he wouldn't change a thing. Like exploitation will still remain, and it's impossible. Being a Marxist means being against not only capitalism, but trying to understand what happens with reality. And I don't think many people achieve that. Of course, I believe I do. And that's of course like how do you say it? Smart ass, it's smart ass. So I think nobody ever asked me what's to be Marxist. Being a BDR, really. No. I follow Marx, Engels. I follow Lenin. Trotsky. The Russian revolutionaries. I don't know how much you have heard of Marx or Marxism.
Yeah, I mean, I have a decent understanding. Once again, the American education system, the way that they teach it is, that it's pretty bad, that it's evil, because of the deaths that Stalin is responsible for.
Well, and that's the black part.
Yeah, the black part. That's the bad part.
Yeah, being a Marxist involves also trying to understand that not everything that a Marxist do it's okay. Of course, we don't agree with Stalin, but we agree with the first part of the revolution. We believe that violence for a revolutionary purpose is okay. I believe if I have to kill a capitalist, if I have to kill between the working class against the bosses, the capitalist section, I will definitely grow up again and start killing people. Because actually one of the problems with capitalism and liberalism is it taught us, it teach us that violence is wrong. So we think of violence as a whole concept, like violence, like evilness, goodness, and everything, every concept has to be understood understood in a historical perspective with ideologies. So it's not the same if a woman kills his rapist as, I don't know, if you kill me because you're bored. It's not the same.
It's not the case.
You apply violence, and the girl who was defending herself applied violence. It's not the same. So being a Marxist involves that we have to kill for ideologies, for our ideology, which will be, of course, the good of humankind as a humanist as well.
With oppression in and of itself is a form of violence against you, even if it's not necessary. Like I'm not being okay. Now, like slavery, I shouldn't say slavery doesn't exist in America, because it does. It's just in the prison systems of America. When African Americans are incarcerated at 4 times the rate of every other ethnic group, and then they have free labor. I mean, we have more people in prison than any other country in the world. It's insane. So there is slavery now, but as a whole, I mean, just the idea of an oppressive government is a form of violence against the masses, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, I because I want to talk in Spanish. Because I haven't discussed this in English ever. Yeah. The idea of the state, any state, involves violence. Any state involves violence. So if you live in a state nowadays, in any country, there will be violence, because there will be some. The problem is, state is not in the hands of the working class; it's in the hands of the capitalists. That's the problem, because it's in the hands of the people who has money. I don't know how to say in English, the bourgeois.
The bourgeois.
The bourgeois class. That's it. So yeah. Actually, we believe that the only violence we receive by the state is, I don't know, when there's a dictatorship, and I don't agree with that. The state involves violence every day with the police, as actually you said, because the black people, the black community, receives more incarceration, more violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the police. So the violence is not only thinking of, I don't know, Adolf Hitler or Benito Mussolini. So, but that's the trick of liberalism and capitalism, that we think the only bad thing about violence is a dictatorship, which is not true. Any state involves violence every day. Here in Argentina, in Africa, in Mexico, anywhere.
Yeah. Anywhere. And the idea of painting all violence as evil, except for this one specific situation of a dictatorship, is a way of keeping the masses in check, because it's like,
exactly,
instead of having this overthrow, it's like, no, we're going to label everything as this.
Exactly, that's it. So we wake up every day and we live, and we know the police can do whatever they want, because they are in power, they are in charge. And actually, if you get robbed in the streets, who are you going to call? Not the Ghostbusters. You're going to call the police.
Yeah.
No, you're going to call the police. But the police here, for example, rapes girls, rapes people. Sexually rapes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because they can do whatever they want. The military as well. No, Dennis, maybe you're a Marxist and you don't know.
Maybe I am a Marxist. I don't know. I can't.
I believe if you have the ideology, despite having, I don't know, never read Marx, maybe you are. The State and the Revolution by Lenin. Lenin was a Russian revolutionary.
Yeah.
And he wrote that in 1917. Well, the Russian Revolution led to the USSR and that stuff.
Of course.
But what he did,
They have it as a PDF. Don't even need to pay for it.
Yeah, that it's like worldwide. Yeah, of course. You will get it. In that book, it's also not really long. He says, okay, what if the working class take the control of the government, of the state? What do we do? Mm-hmm. Because when he wrote the book, the Soviets, the Bolsheviks, were about to take the power in Russia. Mm-hmm. So he wrote that, and he started to think, okay, how do we change from a capitalist society to a communist society? What's the transition? Mm-hmm. So in that book, he basically says what should happen.
Okay, got it.
I think it's really interesting. I said it for you because I think you could have academic perspective of how do we escape this fucking system? Like how would we alive if we live in another city, in another economical system? Like communism or socialism, which is not the same. Yeah. I think nowadays you led me thinking about democracy and how we live nowadays. I think democracy is what people think is the best, like the best thing we could achieve now. It's this kind of democracy. So we actually led to think that Obama is the best thing it could happen to us, or Kennedy, or even Bernie Sanders. There's nothing else. Everything is still connected with the economical system of capitalism.
Alright, that's going to do it for this season finale episode. I hope you all enjoyed listening to not only this episode, but every episode from this season. I know I had a blast making them, so I hope you all had a blast listening to them. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at TFIH_podcast. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube under the same name, the Faith in Humanity Podcast. And you can email us at tfih.podcast@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe to my other podcast, Political Thumbs Up or Down. You can also find that podcast on Twitter at Political Up Down. And you can email that podcast at politicalupanddown@gmail.com. All right, I'll see you all in 2018. Have a safe and wonderful holidays, and peace be with you.